welcome to part 2 of my succulent chicken video, where I'm going to show you how I make the succulents I put on their backs. This chicken already has a small cactus as a focal point along with the moss and stones, and I am going to be adding small succulents along the sides, starting with purple. I'm going to cut 5 small pieces out of a log and flatten them out. And then I'm going to be using my tool to shape them into little scoops. Generally with my succulents, I start from the outside and I do a 5-5-3-1 pattern, but not always. Sometimes I'll mix it up, sometimes I'll just go straight 5-3-1. But with this one, I'm going to do my 5-5-3-1. So for the second layer, I'm going to be making them a little bit smaller, and then the third layer even smaller. All of them are going to have the same scoop shape, rather like a mouse's ear, becoming more narrow as I get towards the interior. Once all of them are shaped, I am going to prep the area with a little bit of translucent liquid Sculpey and add my first leaf. Each time I add a leaf, I'm going to be gentle until I get it into the right spot, and then I'm going to blend it into the body. Once I have the first layer, I will move on to the second, adding them in at the joints of the previous leaves to keep the design even. When it comes time to add the center leaf, I'm going to be making a sort of oblong circle, and once I have that shaped, I'm going to add some translucent liquid Sculpey into the middle and guide that shape into it and press it down very gently with my knuckle. This pattern is great for making flowers, and it is the exact same pattern I used to make the flower on top of the cactus. Next, I decided that the top of the chicken near the neck looked a little bare, so I'm just adding some lavender colored leaves right behind the succulent I just made. I'm going to be using some translucent liquid Sculpey and my smallest ball tool to guide them into place. When I'm making these succulent chickens, I like to have succulents of varying sizes. So right now I'm going to be making a very small, dark turquoise one with triangular leaves. One way you can make triangular leaves is by rolling out a piece of clay, pressing it flat, and then cutting it in half, like you see here. I am also going to be adding a lighter turquoise one right next to it, but this one's going to have a softer, more rounded look to its leaves. More of a classic succulent look. With tiny succulents, rather than going by a particular pattern, I like to make more leaves than I think I'm going to need, and then use them to fill whatever space I'm trying to go for. Now I'm going to add another larger succulent, this time a mossy green. I'm going to follow the usual 5-5-3-1 pattern. This time I'm going to show you the way I usually do it, which is kind of sculpting them as I go, starting with the outer layer and then moving into the inner layer, one leaf at a time. For these leaves, I'm going to go with a more sharp edge. So as I'm making the scoop shape, I'm going to make sure to accentuate that tip gently with my fingers. This is another classic succulent shape. And once again, like the first succulent, I am going to define the shape by the outer edges, wrapping it first with a little bit of translucent liquid Sculpey, and then going one leaf at a time. This one's going to end up a little bit more squashed than usual, but I will be fixing it and altering it as I go to make the shape a bit more pleasing. In order to fix the shape, I'm going to need to add a little bit of side decoration, so I decided to change the shape of the light turquoise to fill in the extra gap that I just added when I was reshaping those leaves. I'm also going to add a bit more moss into the gap. You can always add more moss if you feel like it would look nice peeking out between the succulents, or even just along the edges. I like to texture it with my small needle tool just so that I can get really fine texture, but you can use whatever size needle you'd like. Now I'm going to be completing the second side. It's going to go much the same way as the first, so if you'd like to continue watching, that's great, or you can always skip ahead to the last step. And now for the final step. Once you have placed all of your succulents, you can add a little bit of shine to the edges, or the whole thing if you'd like. Once again, I'm going to be using solar color dust for this purpose. And I'm going to lightly dust the edges of the succulents, just enough to give the ridges a shine. You can do this for all of your succulents using different kinds of powders or pastels. and experiment with various types of looks. I'm going to also shave off a little bit of sparkle that fell onto the body before admiring the finished effect. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and have fun making your own succulents.